You are listening to the DisruptHER Series. Our world is constantly evolving, and at the forefront of that change are women who dare to disrupt. I'm Jennifer Fields.
And I'm Sydney Robertson. Join us as we bring you an exclusive look into the journeys of visionary female founders and influential corporate leaders.
Get ready for candid conversations, a dose of inspiration, and actionable takeaways from the disruptors themselves. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the DisruptHER Series podcast. We're back and we're here with the amazing Dr. Jennifer Pearlman, who is here to talk to us about some amazing experiences and companies she's working with in the medical space. She shakes things up a lot when it comes to longevity, menopause, and really overall wellness for women specifically. So Dr. Pearlman, I'd love to dive right in. We'd love to hear about how you got to where you are today and the why. So maybe starting off, how you started your practice and where it's going.
Well, there's a short version and a long version, and I'll try to give you the in-between because I really was that little kid that loved school, loved science, and always knew I wanted to be a doctor. And a personal family event really cemented that desire, that goal, with very serious, near fatal heart attack my dad incurred at a very young age. His side particularly are athletes, lean, fit. At 35, almost died, and it changed the course of his life and mine, obviously as his daughter, but also because it was identified at a very young age for me that we had a genetic condition that put us at risk. And as I traversed, school and eventually med school, I studied here at U of T, I realized that so much that my life since that event had been shaped by the importance of prevention and lifestyle and, nutrition really was not taught in our sick care focused conventional medical system. So it was a deep passion that persisted, and through my studies, a lot of desires and, different areas came together. But ultimately, a lot of my research was focused on women and heart health and hormones. And, like everyone, part of it is timing. This was at a time where it was convention that women would just get, the synthetic sort of conventional hormone therapy at the time of their menopause. And a large trial was underway to look at those hormones that ended up revealing risk to these women, partly because the trial was so poorly designed. And this is now, as I am finishing up my medical career and realizing poor study, designed wrong because of mostly men that control the purse pockets on what gets studied, and that we really need to take charge to have better options to age well. So it's not that hormones were bad, but the large trial I'm referring to, the WHI, ended up leading to this crisis, misreporting in the media, again, a poorly designed study that led to a very sudden cessation of active care for women at midlife, including the prescribing of hormone therapy. And this is 20 years ago. We have 2 decades of women that missed this opportunity. And again, as I'm progressing and cementing my, early start in medicine, this is the .com, the biotech sort of era, and also a time when I would say the sort of financial markets were really on fire in some of these early stage medical areas, particularly biotech, pharma companies. And by a complete coincidence, just as I was starting practice, took a sideline into finance to work as a healthcare analyst, become a CFA, somehow managed to have a full-time career in finance, wrap up my CFA with a full-time job in medicine, and really with the idea of we need to re-engineer, very entrepreneurial mindset, I guess I would say now, that we need to equip, we need to finance, we need to redesign better medicine, not only to help women, but to, really get to the root cause of disease, spend time with our patients. And so, this sort of actually all came together as I became a mom. And coming out of I have 2 sons, and coming out of my mat leave was really the opportunity. I'm skipping a few pieces where I set up my practice. And my artistic side, I'd always drawn female faces. Some kids draw trees, some draw roses. I taught myself to draw from Archie comics. Veronica was my muse. And my whole life, all my notes, I always drew faces. I loved makeup. I would always be that girl that like doing my friends' makeup. So of course, good fortune again as a Canadian early trainee in medicine, it was sort of some of my mentors that were the early key opinion leaders developing cosmetic Botox. And so when I set up my practice, it was with the insight that aging well from the outside was changing. Aging well from the inside was going to require different tools, treatments, and approaches than I was taught in medical school. I shared with you my personal story, just that I really had a personal passion for that. And of course, that continued in many other areas of my career, my own personal experiences that shaped how my medicine evolved. So when I set up about 20 years ago, Pearl Rejuvenation, it wasn't a Botox practice. It wasn't a menopause practice. It wasn't just about, estrogen or a supplement. It was really this concept that it sounds so commonplace now, but at the time it was like so uncommon that it's really about aging well. And so I had to come up with a term. And, traditional Chinese medicine, there's the concept of qi, this like vital energy, and Ayurvedian medicine, prana, this idea, and the English word's vitality. So no matter what your age is and for your ages, my hope for me, my family, my loved ones, my patients, my whole community was ageless vitality. So that's what I built my practice on. And of course, like here we are, fast forward 20 plus years later, and it couldn't ring more true. I was sharing with you guys before that, just the comments I got, like, what is that word? And how foreign the concept is, and now how commonplace this idea is. But what isn't common is access to the leading edge of this field that I will call regenerative medicine. I'll come back, we can kind of dig into that, which is really the science, the tools, the products, the devices, the approach to take charge of your aging in a very proactive, powerful way, a science-driven way, a way that is personalized, so right for you, precise, shaped by your biomarkers and what I can test, what I do test in my practice, I didn't have access to even 5 years ago. Your genome, your epigenome, your bioage, your micronutrient profile, your metabolome, your hormones, your immune system, your inflammatory profile. And we build a program for you using the most advanced medicine. So although I didn't dig into the details, I hope I shared enough to kind of reveal where I am now, which is more excited than ever before. Still really holding up that, that's sort of like my mission statement, ageless vitality, but I would say better tooled, better equipped than ever before. And of course, and you will relate, I've aged, right? I started, as I said, I was having babies, my 20s, juggling everything, treating women who were having hot flashes. It was just a gap in terms of my age and stage. And here I am. I'm really the avatar of my practice, like so many of my patients that have aged with me. And I have like multi-generational families with me now. But just this idea that really there's never been a better time to age, with more tools and access to leading science in an accessible way. That should be guided. And, just the idea that having a health expert to guide you. But we talk about this concept, and I would say my goals for patients are changing a bit. Because instead of, just beautifying or treating sickness, pills for ills, if we can build a life bridge, right? Just this idea of like optimize you, your health, your vitality, your performance, your aging, your face, your skin, your body, we will be maximally able to benefit from the science that is really close on the horizon, that most longevity experts believe within 12 years, we will reach what's known as the human longevity escape velocity. A time when for every 2 steps forward of aging, we can actually reverse that 3 steps through geroprotective longevity therapeutics.
So you mentioned about the tools and the technology you've incorporated. And I think you also mentioned earlier that there's a lot of AI as well that's being embedded into your practice. Can you share a little bit with everyone about that?
Yeah, I would say, let's think of the last 3 years and what's happened. I'll give you a few specific examples of how I use AI in my
Hmm.
practice. Even just starting with the idea of biomarkers, right? So it's complicated medicine, right? Being able to amass and amalgamate and then interpret and convert all of this bioinformatics into usable information like a plan, a guide, therapeutic recommendations. It's more than any one, even like experienced expert can on their own provide. So, really augmenting the idea of precision medicine by enabling this amalgamation and interpretation and usability of all of this health information. So, we are using that in many specific ways, using multiple companies and multiple platforms, and using the stuff probably you guys are all doing already, questionnaires, wearables, just the kind of tests you might even do at your, GP's practice, right? And then, of course, all the advanced things we offer. So that's one example. On the aesthetic side, I mean, picture based and photography and just the power of our iPhones today. We're using a lot of simulators that help to just, little aspirationally give patients an idea of what may be, right? A lot of patients don't start on the journey because they don't know what's available and they don't know what goal or destination they could espouse to. And I think this really helps at an early stage, whether it's a little nudge, an insight, they're just predictions that can really get someone started on a journey. So AI simulation is something, as sharing we do for the face, for the skin, we're building for the body. And we're marrying that to very complex analytics that will be, both mobile based and devices in the clinic. And the final example I'll give you, which is super interesting, I think is uh, from a real N of one, like therapeutic precision cancer treatments. We're almost there. It's using AI to, really shorten the timeline to decode the entire genome, what we know and what we don't know. So in the clinic with AI's support, we've been able to introduce whole genome sequencing. And that's different than what you're probably familiar with, which is gene testing, right? Where you're looking at a very set number of genes, you're looking for some errors that might be markers of risk,
Hmm.
potentially for intervention, but based on the little we know today and very specific marks on the genome. Whereas AI powered whole genome sequencing, again, this is something like it's not a fantasy, it's something we've been offering almost a year now in the clinic, allows, and the times come down, a fairly reasonable time frame to look at the whole genome and scan, for instance, for rare genetic diseases, which interestingly are not rare. So, of the 7,000 identified rare genetic diseases, it's actually very common that you may have someone who's a carrier or has some degree of risk. So that kind of testing is based on next gen AI powered whole genome sequencing. And
Can I
the
interrupt you
final
for one
thought, yeah,
second?
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah,
on that note, 'cause I remember doing 23andMe
yeah,
many years back, right? And
yeah,
it says I'm predisposed to type 2 diabetes because of my dad's genes,
yeah,
right? So you're saying with the genomes, you're going a lot deeper. So say,
yeah,
for example, studies come back and it
yeah,
shows I'm predisposed to
yeah.
type 2 diabetes. Is it like the now what? And then you're able to then treat for it real time? Is that the
That's a
goal?
perfect lead to that next little feature that and these are like little
Okay.
features that we offer as part of that whole genome scan. So imagine
Mhm.
that you had a browser on your genome because now everything's known. And by the way, every week there's updates because what's known is rapidly evolving,
Right.
again, powered by AI.
Yeah.
So instead, you have this browser on your genome
Hmm.
and you could search by gene if there was one identified you wanted to know, by disease state,
Hmm.
by risk. You scan and you see not just that one gene or that one type of risk,
Hmm.
right? Which is what 23andMe is looking at. They're called SNPs. They're like one
Snips.
type of mutation in just a small subset
Hmm.
of coding genes that are not only known, identified, but also recognized to vary amongst us. Because, like, we three sitting here today are not quite identical, but differ by, like 0.3 in terms of our genomic variation. So all of this science is based on that small difference that determines everything that's different about us, how we look,
Wow.
how we age, and our disease risk. So that Google browser is like, for me, one of the most valuable and usable tools that, again, AI powered. So I would say to your question, just the idea that it's both, this rapid advancement of dealing with complex information that is enabled by AI, with as well the rapid advancement of biomedical research and science. Like we are, those are
Right.
together.
On that,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just you
Yeah.
work in an industry that's pretty dominated by men,
Yeah.
and just wondering, like, have you experienced any like biases or some obstacles along the way to get to where you are today?
You know, I think back to my days in finance. I didn't focus on that, but as much as my field now is dominated by men, 20 years ago, think Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, that was a man eat man world. And I was like 20 at the time and had a very different background. I was like a completely naive, recent medical student planted into this world. And I will say that through those years, some of my experiences, thankfully, nothing catastrophic, really did lead me to have this epiphany. And I will verbalize it, but I thought it even at 20. I will not ever, or I guess not always, work for the man. And it's not, I have sons, I have a like, it's not an attack on the one, but just this idea that if I want to change the world or, build a career path, that I needed to take charge, including finding, I don't love the word balance. I think it puts undue pressure on a lot of women that are weaving together many important priorities in their life. But the flow, like the braid that I wanted to weave and the way that I wanted to do it. So for many reasons, I had that epiphany at a very young age. Alongside the epiphany, I again kind of went quickly through the wrongdoings that women's health has endured. And by the way, menopause is super hot now. It's not just we're of the demographic. It's like the lights are on, all of this stuff. I've been practicing this medicine for 20 years. It's fantastic. We have podcasters, we have Oprah, we have Drew Barrymore having hot flashes on the Today Show. But guess what?
Mel Robbins.
Yeah, they're on it.
Definitely talking.
They're messaging, but guess what? There's still no new science.
Right.
So there's this gap in the biomedical research at the earliest stage. What gets studied? Who's controlling the purse pockets? And it's literally, and it's complex, but whether it's sexual health, like erectile dysfunction, and a shout out to my friend Cindy, who's like the queen of messaging the importance of putting female sexual health on the radar. But just this idea that at the earliest stage of drug discovery and biomedical research, drug targets, treatment targets are being selected that exclude women's issues and concerns. These are notably different than men. Women, females, are systematically excluded from early stage research, even animal research. And we know women are not many men. That's a title of an article that was my article in the Globe 10 years ago on a Women's Day. So just this idea that we have a long way to go, but that the lights are on.
Right.
And that we have millennial menopause happening now. And I see it all the time. And you think of millennials, they're in their early 40s. Menopause is not an event because that, by the way, happens on average at the age of 51.
Isn't menopause one day? There's perimenopause and then there's menopause. It's one day, right?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So conventionally, we're going to turn all this on its head. So conventionally, menopause is simply defined as the last menstrual period a woman will experience only 12 months after the fact. And on average, that occurs at the age of 51. And then only then would she qualify conventionally for access to something that, like this cohort, I told you 20 years in the darkness of menopause. So think of who's practicing medicine. Think of the family docs and the specialists. These are the doctors that learn nothing about menopause and hormones, or that they cause clots and breast cancer. And still to this day, turn women around. It'll pass. Suck it up. It's part of aging. It's not worth the risk. The advice is poor. So just to come back to what I mean by the millennial menopause, these women in their early 40s are experiencing the beginning of the transition from our reproductive life to our aging life. And this is a much more useful way of looking at menopause because it's been a disservice to our ovaries and us to think of the ovary as only a reproductive organ. It is not, it is our longevity organ. And as its capacity, the ovarian reserve is diminishing from an obstetrical perspective, we know that's even in the mid to late 30s in a very personalized way. We're not aging at the same rate as our birthday candle rate, such that by early 40s, there's hormone imbalance, there's early perimenopausal symptoms, and we can take charge. And those women know, because the millennial mindset is be proactive. And they come in, they're like, I don't want my mom's menopause. So it's the mindset, it's the, just this loud voice of women in media that are turning the lights on. But I would just flag, we have a lot further to go.
Earlier, you're talking about your genome testing, what you're doing in your practice, and the markers you're seeing earlier. So whether it's for diseases, whether it's for perimenopause, menopause, do you see us getting to a place with AI where we can make it more accessible to all women? Because you spoke at one of our events a few months back, and there was definitely an element of frustration in the room because I'm very privileged that I get to work with you one-on-one, which is a gift. Like, I've been with you for 14 years now, but not all women have that access. And I'm just wondering, because I know we're at a time of change in Canada and revolution around the medical system, but we are, as you mentioned, in a lack and a deficit for women when it comes to their reproductive health, when it comes to, menopause, perimenopause, what have you, and other diseases that align with that, whether it's breast cancer, what have you. Do you see us getting to a place with AI or other technologies that you're currently involved with where we can get to that preventative versus remedial stage?
So there's a lot in there that I want to unpack and kind of hit on a few things and give you some specific examples. I think firstly, it does start with the mindset. And that's not only the mindset of empowered women that will go to their doctors, unlike perhaps generations before that suffered in silence or didn't know because of lack of awareness that their sleep, their fog, their mood, their inability to focus and get their job done had anything to do with hormones, perimenopause or menopause. So I think the mindset shift will drive everything that you asked about. But it will require not only the patient or, the women's mindset, but their providers as well. And as everything in conventional medicine, I'm going to talk to, I have, and I can share more, but the leading edge of medicine, what's the timeline to go from the leading edge? What is, considered investigational, experimental, and in some cases, I would say to some, alternative.
Right.
How does that get to the conventional medical educational model such that we have providers that adopt this mindset? I mean, the guidelines have been updated. I'm part of the Menopause Society. Guidelines are updated. The information's out there. And yet to this day, even this week, I get my patients coming to me. They see my highly respected colleagues, whether it's cardiology or endocrinology or what have you. And they get the wrong advice when it comes to hormone therapy. And it's not, I think the tides are changing. It's going to require like these busy doctors that are overworked and underpaid for their, skill and their time, whatever it is, to on their own volition, like retool, re-educate. It's a lot that will go into that. We also have a healthcare system, and speaking, I guess now as an Ontarian doctor, I'll talk about the good and the bad, that is imploding. It really is, for all the gaps that always existed that I recognized way back when. I think all of the skeletons are out of the closet, partly through the pandemic. Mass exodus of skilled labor.
Yes.
And the shortage, you're alluding to this, of finding, never mind skilled experts, just, primary care providers. And then of course with the referrals, I see it all the time for like where even there's high need. So I do think that creativity, we're going to have to redefine in Canada, but here it's obviously mandated provincially, how we both deliver and finance and fund healthcare. And there are very creative ways that we can use technology. I mean, This is not an AI solution. It is smart people coming together and rebuild an imploding sick care system. And I'll give you one example. March is International Women's Month, right?
Mhm.
I don't know why that month, but you may or may not know that the government of Ontario has delisted the pap test. And that was already filtering.
Completely?
Yes.
It was already reduced to only once every 2 years.
3 years,
Or 3
actually.
years. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
It's gone now.
So,
What?
and let's go back to that. That happened many years ago. And when that happened, so a lot of patients don't realize, when that happens, it means there's no funding. Or doctors, it's like, really, they can't, they just, there's no code. They are not providing PAPs anymore on a regular basis. It was annual when I started. And of course, as a result, it means women weren't being examined. They weren't being asked about gynecological health or related issues. It wasn't just that the PAP was only going to be offered every 3 years, right? It was really this, real reduction in, let's call it advanced women's health or women's screening. So the next layer is the defunding of the PAP and its replacement with the viral tests. We all know about PCR tests for the virus, highly associated with cervical cancer, but providing different information. So
And also,
yeah.
isn't it also an at-home test? Like, it's not even like you do it for your doctor. Like, it gets mailed to you or something, right?
Really?
Or you can
Well,
pick it up at the pharmacy.
This is why I thought I would give you this one
Yeah.
example. There's many examples, just because when you asked about access and taking charge and you can't get to a doctor, well, so I do think more what we call point of care testing will be available and women opting in and, even to like presently, so on the positive, the Ontario Breast Screening Program, one of the best in North America, perhaps the world, in terms of the communication, the reporting, and the callbacks, has now been open to women who I always screened in their 40s. And by the way, to the audience who may be in their 40s and not able to access a GP or not in a timely way, you can just show up at an imaging center and request that. So
You can?
this is now something that,
Do you mean a full-on ultrasound or a mammogram?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's amazing. I did not know
you're
that.
hitting on advanced, like what other options? So of course, there's advanced ultrasounds, there's more sophisticated three-dimensional imaging and MRIs. We're talking about the core mammogram, a great start, and there's no alternative. It's not the self-breast exam, it's not thermography, there's no alternative. The mammogram still has a key role to play in breast cancer screening. So just this idea that there are ways that women can be advocates for themselves and access, and to AI, and how that is not only making it more accessible, but better. So, and earlier, okay, to the diseases that, like conventionally we've gone nowhere really, until recently, again, partly because of genomics, epigenetics, and AI in cancer care, right? We slash it,
Yeah.
we burn it, and we poison it still. Chemo, surgery, radiation.
Yeah.
But that is turning on its head. So just the month, and I'm super excited about this, and we will open this up. So I certainly feel that this is something that many will have access to. We are launching as the first site in the world with a close partnership with a precision cancer company that will take cancer and do a full genetic and epigenetic scan and give you precise treatment recommendations.
Sorry, this is based on you going into the imaging clinic. You have to still go in yourself, right? Or is this part of AI?
This is going to be, so here's where we're launching. So just as the PAP was delisted, we're launching a urine-based test
Oh, wow.
that uses this technology.
No way.
A urine test that you literally could do at home to identify in your urine cell-free DNA from HPV virus, the virus highly associated with cervical cancer, as well as cell-free cervical cancer RNA. And that's very technical, but just this idea that this is so specific, this is so accurate, it is turning on its head. It's not only accessible, but it's like vastly superior to the kind of screening that we are doing conventionally, because, I'm in practice 20 plus years. There's really not been a lot of advancement in PAP testing.
Right.
So it's really interesting. And we're actually recruiting now for this study. So when it will be widely available is it's going to be quick.
Wow, this is
So it'll be quick. As my question is going to be like, how fast? So from this time of testing and doing this pilot to actually being, and so How does that work with approvals in the government? Like, how do you take it from this stage of innovation to the all Canadians?
Well, the CEO, the company's called Protea. The CEO is
So
actually
called what, sorry?
Canadian.
It's called what, sorry?
Protean, and the CEO
Protean.
is
Okay.
Canadian, so he's
Oh.
highly invested. As many, I mean, again, because
Wow.
of the way the government of our country reimburses innovators and manufacturers of some
Mhm.
of these technologies. There are great delays to us in Canada having
Right.
access to innovation, and just this idea that I feel so fortunate to have a great personal relationship with the scientists and CEO and being able to develop this together, and that company taking special interest in Canada.
That's
I
amazing.
have global platforms in women's health, so I can't say it's only because of my proud, Maple Leaf status, but I serve as faculty and director of women's health, for instance, with the first master's program accrediting actually providers, so physicians, scientists, but also there's a track for lay people that are interested in longevity medicine. And I'm the
Oh.
director of women's health. I refer to that as FemSpan. And so, I think
So the
this
question on
will
that,
be
so for those that are doctors, how would they apply for a program like that if they were not
it it's so early right now that literally we are like the only site.
okay.
But we are in discussion about, for instance, setting up a complete supply chain in Canada.
Hmm.
So like building a local lab. I mean, that's going to take time, but like
Oh,
I just share that because
it's very exciting.
there's so many reasons. I keep reinforcing the idea that I experienced in it in my practice just a few months since this delisting of the PAP. Look at your
Mhm.
response. Like, all of my patients are very keen to opt in. So yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Would you say from that that if you were to say to have innovation move more quickly in Canada, that we need more Canadian innovators because we're already in cycle versus say innovation coming from other companies? Would you say it fast tracks when you have Canadian innovators?
I think what I want to do to answer your question is change hats and put my finance hat on and
Mhm.
and like that visionary hat on and say like at a very high level. I mean, it's sad to say, but I've seen it throughout my career. Money drives like, innovation, right?
Right.
And so I'm very excited to say I can publicly announce this because it was announced yesterday, in part to help direct, expedite, and be involved in the development of early stage research, the most innovative technologies, research
Mhm.
products from, bench to bedside, we say in medicine. I've taken on an advisory role with one of the largest healthcare investment banks. They're based in France.
Mhm.
And my role as advisor will be to get involved. And don't worry to my patients, I am not leaving my medical practice.
You
But if I wanted
can't.
to, the stuff that is coming through my desk, like my inbox, I mean, just again, that concept, we should all be very excited about the
Mhm.
innovation coming. But it's like I said, with that hat on, that I would say, yeah, I think as not just females in driver's seats
Mhm.
or the ability to help direct some of this, but just very empowered, engaged people. Because, and this might be a good plug for back to the importance of women's health, where women thrive, society thrives.
Amen. I would agree.
Our science tells us this, where women are able to, achieve their healthiest mindset, lifestyle, environments. They, one, maximize their genetic potential, can, especially with the things like hormones and advanced therapeutics, mitigate their risk, our risk. Women have, unlike men, a much greater risk of advanced, faster midlife aging because the rapid aging of our ovary, right? Men dwindle later on. They have a much later decline, for instance, in testosterone.
So they see depletion in their hormones too.
Yeah, I say dwindle. We deplete. We have
Okay.
midlife depletion, but
Yeah.
yes, they do. And we'll touch on men because we are seeing more and more men than ever before. I'll touch on that. And my focus on women was because we are so complicated. As I've indicated, there's such a vast unmet need. And as a woman and through my own experiences, I've shared a few. We need 3 more podcasts for me to share all of my, as pregnancy and motherhood, but just this idea that there clearly is so much benefit in helping women manage their risks, get the most of their genetic potential, and shape I call it healthy lifestyle
Mhm.
to support their longevity. So not only in even our current society where maybe the women are in the workforce, women still, they're the gatekeepers to a healthy home. You're making the whole family healthier. And working more and more with men, I do find the men most successful are the ones with a really plugged in partner,
Right.
but also through epigenetics. And I talked about that.
Epigenetics?
So epigenetics is the concept that our code, as I was taught in medical school, is not hardwired, but rather this fixed set of information, which is our genetic code, is constantly being literally scaffolded, folded, and altered by our exposures, our environment, our microbiome, our nutrition, even our thoughts. And that gene environment interaction is what actually determines the vast majority of what we see, like our phenotype, right?
Mhm.
So genotype information, genotype reality, the proteins that make up the structural functional proteins that make up you, but also your disease risk and your aging. And experts believe, when I say the vast majority, that gene environment balance sways heavily to 80% being environmentally driven through what we call epigenetics. But epigenetics is transgenerational. And when I share with you what that means, you'll automatically know, maybe in your own personal lineage, as I do mine, that it's through the maternal genome that we women can transmit to our offspring and on the combination of our gene environment information code. Again, that's called our epigenome. So when you have, and particularly it's when your maternal grandma have a significant stressor psychologically, nutritionally, like starvation, our generation, our second generations from a lot of women that may have survived war zones, like myself, that risk is actually manifested quite significantly 2 generations down.
Wow.
And this is because the egg that formed her first generation, like her daughter, already existed, right? So her starvation, low protein diet, psychological stress affects that egg. It would affect the next generation. But the reproductive tissue that forms the second generation, the grandchildren, is what's actually being shaped and altered by that very exposure. So you think about a major stress, like let's just talk about we call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet, or the barrage of environmental chemicals in our environment, or the pandemic and vaccination, like all of these factors that we're seeing health outcomes or disease outcomes in ourselves and our, first generation and our current generation, but you think of the trickle down effect. And that's this really powerful concept of transgenerational epigenetics. So that was a lot of words, but now you understand.
Yeah.
So now let me come back to what I said, because I left it there sitting, and now I've explained why I say that. And that's that women are the gatekeepers to health and longevity of our species.
Wow. Never thought of it that way, but
Pretty
it makes sense.
powerful.
Yeah,
I mean, I
wow.
feel pretty powerful. That's so fascinating. Do you feel for a woman, after knowing once they hear the podcast, they'll hopefully feel as empowered as we do right now. But what are some things that they can do I mean, you mentioned, just a mindset is a huge part of it, but what are like 3 things they can do to really take control of their health in our current medical system?
You said to me, get personal. So I'm going to be honest and personal. This morning, I just succumbed. And I've been prescribing Aura rings and wearables to my patients. And I always think, oh, I'm so busy. I can't really, like myself, I have it. I bought my Aura ring. And it's not a plug for that company. I'm not
No, they're
an
amazing.
investor, but all my patients use it. I'm using that wearable information through my AI platforms. I'm like, so like we say in business, you cannot manage what you do not measure.
Mhm.
So start with information. And again, it's, I guess, a luxury item. But whether it's your iPhone, your Fitbit, I mean, there is a lot that we can start measuring. And what I found in over 20 years of practice, and I estimate over 80,000 patient visits, just that my most successful patients, it's true no matter what, but they're the ones that have some degree of self-awareness. So just this concept, we toss this word around, mindfulness. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is that? Just dial in,
Mm-hmm.
be aware, such that if you're measuring, whether it's heart rate variability, your sleep quality, your steps, your nutrition, you're connecting that information that you're tracking and amassing to the daily experience of being you. Because I always tell my patients, I am like your CIO. I'm your chief information officer. I'm going to tell you everything I know that's right for you. I'm going to guide you, but you're the CEO. You're the decision maker. You're the risk bearer. And you're also the communicator, the translator. You know you best. And I rely on that, I would say more, but certainly in keeping with my labs, my results, the imaging
Mm-hmm.
tests, it all comes together. So starting with the
So
idea of
measurement,
wearables,
mindfulness. Okay.
and then and I know you touched on this, but I would poke at that that expert care is far more accessible than I think. It's true. We have
Can you share with the audience how that would be then? 'Cause
yeah,
I think some
well,
people do feel a bit overwhelmed. Like, where do I start? Who do I call? Which site do I go to?
yeah, and I think one of the benefits, frankly, of the pandemic and AI is a lot of us got really comfortable to virtual care.
Mm.
I can tell you, I literally so March 10th was 2020 was the day the WHO called the global pandemic, and I launched my fully operational virtual platform on that was March 11th. That was Wednesday. I remember it was my husband's birthday, and then March 12th, the Thursday, it was purple too. And we had our virtual care platform operational, and people got quite comfortable having intimate experiences in a virtual setting. And this is a licensed, secure experience connected to the health record.
Mm-hmm.
And that's before AI.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have AI, and we can plug in the wearables, and so it's like a next level experience. So we can literally see patients anywhere in the world. And I'm licensed in Florida and New York. There's international opportunities that are opening. And, there's different models of care. But I would say, measure, dial in,
Mm-hmm.
and then seek an expert. Don't DIY. That's why I don't love the word biohacking. A lot of what is considered biohacking, a chunk of it, finds a way in a science rigorous way into my practice because it touches on the leading edge.
Mm-hmm.
But the word hack actually means DIY.
Mm-hmm.
And DIYing a do-it-yourself model when it's something as important as this, I wouldn't advise. So I would say find
Yeah.
that expert.
So
Don't hack it.
WebMD is like not really, I know I've heard people say it can be your demise, right? Because you can just go there and start to diagnose yourself on things. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you've got every disease in the book, right?
Well, ChatGPT. I mean, I'm a avid user
Yes.
of AI, and what I would say is it actually is not. It's not a misguide. It's an empowering tool
Mm-hmm.
to bring a more informed and equipped patient
Right.
to the expert. And every AI platform, and there's many. I touch on a few, but there's many platforms or different models of how we can use AI. I write a lot about this, so I can reference an article on my website. I go through very methodically 6 great applications on AI in healthcare. Hussein Zhang, the NVIDIA CEO, which powers AI, talks about the idea that healthcare will be perhaps the greatest application of AI, and that through AI, biology will be transformed into engineering. And that's so exciting.
That
But
is.
just this idea that this access to information and very custom niche information is greater than ever before and only getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And then connecting that even with things on your devices to health, a scan of your retina, your face, your wearable information. These are nudges, and they all are designed to be nudges, not replacements for expert care.
Well, just to wrap things up, you are an incredibly busy person. You are doing so much for women's health. How do you find any time for yourself, and what do you do to unwind?
Fun stuff.
Well, I would say I have great passion in what I do. So it all weaves together, but I said already I'm a mom, and my 2 sons they're 18 and 15. So that's like blink of an eye that happened. They keep it all real. It's all about relationships, whether it's my patients, my incredible team, all the incredible innovators we work with, but family. And so I love spending time with my family. I love my cottage and the lake so much. I even built a clinic up there,
Wow.
which is only a sign that again I love what I do,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I travel the world as this global expert and love tasting little bits of different parts of the world, but connected to everything that I do that I can bring back. So I guess I'm answering your question and mentioning work, but remember what I said, it's a braid and it's interwoven. And I've always been an optimist and a really passionate student. And I think what fuels me is just this idea that I learn every day. I learn from my kids. I learn from my patients. I learn from the brilliant international network of like experts and colleagues. And I like we were saying, I think knowledge is power.
Mhm.
And that for me is really what fuels me.
It was such an honor to have you here today. I've learned so much.
Mhm.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this time too. And we really appreciate you coming in to be a part of Disrupt Her.
Yes.
Thank you. Congrats to you guys. What a great platform and an honor to be with you.
And we'll add Dr. Pearlman's details in our show notes so you can find her online and get to see all the amazing things she's working on. So thank you so
Guys,
much.
great.
Thanks for joining. We hope you are feeling as inspired as we are to shake things up and drive positive change.
If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and give us our show rating. We'll catch you on the next one.